I think we're live and standing for today's stream because sitting down gives us some really ugly lighting. If we want to compare, like, I was thinking about taking a photo for the thumbnail, but looking real washed out. And I mean, I am pretty pale with the winter up here in Boston, but even more pale than I'd like to be versus standing up here getting a little bit of the natural lighting, even though it's pretty gloomy outside. So I was thinking what to do for the 10th live stream that we have going on here for the Calm Down channel. And I feel like most of the live streams so far have been pretty heavily catered towards English learning. And that's fine, talking about vocab and speaking on grammar and those type of points. But I figured maybe, with the scripted content that I'm doing and what I think I'll release as edited video that's not live. Um, One of the things I could do is just be able to talk about more actionable steps that people could take. So it's easy to say, be more proactive in conversation, or you need to speak more. But for people who really need the help, they need that step by step on how. So let's talk about analyzing situations and having better contextual awareness. Um, I always think back, you know, what it really boils down to is what's obvious to you, what's obvious to other people isn't always obvious for everybody, right? And you don't know what your blind spots are. And I feel like the pendulum always swings to one extreme or another. People are really good at it, and then they feel like they're being talked down to. And then some people are truly, you know, not for lack of effort, not for lack of trying, but they are pretty helpless without having a very concrete guide. I think back to my classrooms when I was trying to think, like, if if you're in a safe space, right, and you're walking along the street and someone approaches you, what is probably going to be the reason why they're talking to you, a stranger, somebody that you don't know at all? And I remember one of my students said, "Oh, maybe they need help opening up a bank account." There's this division between possibility, anything's possible. Is it possible that maybe on that day, that person in particular, they really needed help opening up a bank account? And out of all the people they decided to speak to, they didn't even go to a bank. They just decided to speak to you. That's a possibility, right? Anything's possible, but the probability, the chances, how likely something is to happen versus less likely, again, some people are really good at weighing those odds and some people aren't. So if you've never thought through in this way, it's a good idea to kind of lay it out there, to gather the data, to kind of think through that, and then make a guess and behave accordingly. And the more you have a little bit of a, we can say, investment, like going into something completely open. People say, be flexible, be open minded, be free with your conversation. Even that idea, even if it's something that I agree with, it kind of really depends at where you are, what your personality type, what you've been exposed to, how old you are, even how you're going to thrive in that type of situation. So if someone's always closed off, they have it set in their head, there can only be one way. Like, I know this guy, he's approaching me on the street, he's going to scam me. I mean, depending where you live, maybe that person is going to scam you. Maybe in a certain environment, like because I work in the financial district and I always wear a suit that looks like a banker. Maybe that's why people approach you about how to open up a bank account. Okay. Like you need all those type of clues to kind of like weigh it in together. So someone who has good intentions and they're trying to learn, there is a problem. There is a risk of over analysis. I'm a noob. That's true. Thanks, Melissa. What's going on? Dozens. I don't know how that's relevant, but maybe you can let me know what you are. What are we talking about here? Getting thrown off track. Okay. So if you're in a brand new situation, how blind are you about all this stuff? Are you able to kind of assess and weigh, or are you completely helpless? So what I was trying to get at is if you're walking on the street and again, you're in a safe environment and someone approaches you, most likely they're going to be asking you for directions, right? And once you know that someone's going to be asking you for directions, then you can kind of break down and process through what are those locations that they're trying to go to. Me, I live in a bigger city. The most common places that people are going to try to go to is probably the train station. How do I connect from point A to point B? And once I have that awareness, like my gears can keep turning and I can probably formulate, oh, well, you want to walk down this street, take two rights, and then it's the next block from there. I'm stumbling through because I don't have like a set geographical location to think through. And yes, Melissa's comment about being a noob is throwing me off, even if it is true, even if it is something that I agree with. And I just want to say that, again, live streaming speaking is very different from actual conversation. Okay. Thank you for that context, Dozens, because like the question from right off the bat kind of threw me for a loop, but it is true. It didn't even occur to me. So when it comes from possibility and probability, let's talk about it live in this situation right here. Asking someone's like religious beliefs right off the bat, um, I don't know what the agenda is coming into the conversation. But when we talk about perceptions and worldview and how you view other people, inherently good, inherently bad, Christian belief like everyone's born a sinner until they're redeemed through God, right? It will shape how you affect and interact with other people. And if you take religion out of that context, are you just an optimist? Are you just a pessimist? It can be debated and argued how judgmental you want to be in a conversation, right? But it goes back to that idea of being so open minded. There's layers to all this stuff. Are you being open minded to be more flexible because you want to actually gather more data? Well, I might not have the best opinion of this person, but maybe I'm willing to hear them out. Maybe even if I don't care for them, even if I am suspicious, if I can help, I want to be able to help. So you're going to collect more data. You're going to listen through. You can still be guarded, right? I think to a certain extent that can be really helpful for you. But if you just don't know what to expect, then you can become an easy sucker, right? And that's what we want to watch out for. You don't want to be taken advantage of on that point. Yeah, no. Again, it helps. Like, doesn't it's great that you are jumping in with the context because the tough thing to have happen, especially with streaming and online and social media and all that stuff, is how genuine of a conversation can you have? And I feel like being able to talk about differing opinions of thought, there really isn't conversation around that, right? Maybe we can talk about the difference between talking with someone and talking at someone, right? So let's say, and not you, dozens specifically, but just other people in general. For me, we got to think of a hypothetical. Okay, so let's take religion out of it. Let's talk about ice cream. Okay, what if I think strawberry is the best flavor of ice cream, period? And you might have a different opinion of ice cream. And maybe my belief in that is unwavering, it's unshaken. Nothing you can do is going to make me change my mind. But what type of dialogue can we have from that? Does it serve any purpose for me to solidify? Like, I already know what my favorite flavor of ice cream is. And even if I disagree, I know, like, oh, someone else is going to say chocolate. Dozens, you're going to say vanilla. Are you crazy? Are you insane? First of all, that's not a very fun conversation to have. And then two, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't build anything up. Like, what if you're a colleague? What if you're an extended family member? What if I'm at a social event and I'm just trying to meet new people? What if I really genuinely want to make a friend? People let their preferences get in the way of things. And again, for some people, this might sound really obvious, but now in this day and age of social media and so much communication happening online, I I don't think it is as obvious. I think people really like to pick their sides, and instead of reaching any kind of mutual understanding or middle ground, well, like deep down, I'm not searching for people to change my perception and opinion on what my favorite flavor of ice cream is. I think it's more fulfilling, and I say this often with like music. I might like strawberry for XYZ reason. I just hope that someone else can find a flavor that they enjoy just as much. Because if they can't find anything that hits on that same level, they're really missing out, right? Dialogue in an ideal environment would come with the assumption that you can change their minds. If two people do desire to get to the nitty gritty of the truth, that becomes a much better conversation. Even in the Bible, we are told to approach the conversation. Yeah, so maybe one day we just need to have like a very religious focused conversation. What I will say that muddles all of this are people who self label, self identify, and then they become the worst role models for that cause, right? So, unfortunately, dozens, your attitude, even if it should be the majority, or let's say it is the majority, I don't think it's the perception of the majority, right? I think a lot of other people are quick to throw in religion or say that they're a part of whatever tribe and admonish and criticize and talk people down and close off communication. And that burns a lasting impression on other people where they don't want to engage with that group whatsoever. And it's unfortunate. What are some of those things? Bad apples ruin the bunch. That's an idiom that goes into it. Um, it can be for anything. Again, religion is like a really easy example, but any kind of sports team, certain sports, they are notorious for having toxic fans, music groups, Taylor Swift fans are crazy. Video games are another environment, movies, that's another thing as well. Um, yeah. Yeah. So what do I want to speak to on that point? I think for people, it's really important to find a place where they feel like they can belong, right? And when you're in a group, you use certain language. You want to be recognized. You want to be able to talk like the people in my group. You don't want to be that outsider anymore. But to fall on these tropes, like this is no different to me than being on that basic level of just having the most basic, plain, boring, repeated conversations again and again and again. So again, religion out of this context, but the easy example I always think of is, "Hi, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. And you?" You are not going to learn anything about anybody going that way. Now, when you don't have the rapport, when you're meeting somebody for the first time and you want to go so deep, so really thick into it, possibility, it's possible, but probability, probably lower chances of that happening. Yeah, exactly. Man, I think most servers will talk about brunch service on Sunday being like the worst periods of dealing with people, everybody coming out of church. I mean, it's so ingrained in society, like how much do we accept Black Friday, right? And Black Friday comes after the holiday of Thanksgiving, at least in the US, where we're supposed to be united with friends and family and say that we're so thankful and appreciative for the people we have in our lives that we don't need anything else to immediately go shopping. Um, I mean, breaking that down in layers. Of course, I do Black Friday shopping. Of course, I'm going to capitalize on discounts. Just because I shop, that doesn't mean I disregard friends and family, but it's just seeing that scale, that whiplash moment of things happening. To me, going back to your original question, okay? So if you ask me, yeah, I'm going to say I am Christian. But depending on the text that you read, some people say like, "Oh, you need to be proud. You need to proclaim. You need to what's the word? Do missions and like really spread the word." And I feel whether it's like through religion or other things, quiet confidence is the way. Yeah, evangelize. Quiet confidence is the way to go. So I have my own relationship with how those things go, and I've been able to witness things that I can call miracles. Would the faith be as strong if I didn't have those moments? Probably not. But also, just like contextually thinking, there's upbringing, there's environment, there's my childhood that all factors into those things. And it never really sat well with me that evangelizing really boils down to I'm right because I know I'm right. You're wrong, even though you grew up with all that information. You're wrong because I know I'm right. Like that's a very poor way of executing that conversation. But that's what I could say the majority of very religious focused people do in handling that conversation. Maybe they do have good intentions. Maybe they are a little bit smoother, but patience, kindness, humanity, that really has to be in the foundation to connect with other people. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So there's so many of these things, the fruits of the spirit, that I don't know. Like, let's talk about the weight of vocabulary in general, and it'll circle back to exactly what you're talking about here, dozens, where non-native English speakers they keep looking for the perfect vocabulary word to capture an idea, and in other languages, I think it works. Sometimes I look at the vocabulary that Japanese has, and it's like, whoa, such a complex piece of thought can be captured in a single word. Like Wagamama is one that comes to mind. Um, and English doesn't really work that way. And the people who ride on the power of just having that singular word, rather than being effective, I think it becomes insincere and it becomes, well, I mean, fake, insincere. They're kind of correlated together, right? And plus, how do you want to self label yourself? Like, your conviction, your thoughts, your identity. Yes, there's a lot going on internally, but other people are going to have their own opinions, whether right or wrong. You know, like some of the other people who popped in the chat earlier. Um, and what is their relationship to you? So is it a relationship that's worth fostering and getting to know better to correct them maybe on their misunderstandings? You know, it's kind of up to you. Um, but labeling yourself like no real rich person to me, well, that's another complicated thing. What I wanted to say is if anybody talks about how rich they are, they're so rich, I get a little bit skeptical about how rich they actually are. But also, you know, stroking the ego, rich people love talking about how much money they are. So maybe that kind of goes in the same boat. But replace that adjective, how nice someone is. Oh, I'm such a nice guy. Like you don't do that for yourself, right? Like even being patient. Hey, I'm working on being more patient. I wish I could be a more patient person. To me, that sounds sincere. If someone says, "Oh, I'm so patient. I'm the most patient person in my whole family," there's a little bit of doubt that comes into play there, right? So, hmm, yeah. Thanks for contributing to the discussion, Dozens. This is taking a different turn than how I thought it would be with me hitting live, but that's good. That's the advantage of adapting. And again, we don't know each other, but trying to have as genuine of a conversation we can have on something that can get pretty complex, right? Um, I'm just trying to think about as we wind down here, how else can we make this actionable for people who might not have engaged in something like this, right? I think there's a reality where someone's trying to have a conversation like we did and they just shut down completely, right? Like if I would have had more prejudice and I said something like, "Oh, this dozens, they must be a bot or they must be a troll. What are they talking about? Like just going on a religion? Are they about to like just try to tell me how I worship the devil or something?" And that's a possibility, right? We've seen those street preachers. We've seen that evangelizing, like we were talking about. But I didn't have the data, you know. And out of all the other people who engaged in the chat initially, you're the one who kept talking. And I can say that, you know, this little bit of back and forth we have, I think we are pretty much on like the same middle ground. But I think even if not, even if it's like, nah, I'm still on my side. Nah, I don't see where dozens is coming from. It doesn't have to be heated. Is the main thing, and it just so happened to turn out that we're basically on the same side. But for other people, they don't know because they haven't had the conversation exposure. Okay, so recapping, boiling down all those thoughts. If you go into a conversation being so judgmental, this person is wrong, they're out to get me, or like, oh, they could do no wrong, that doesn't really help you at all. But trying to have like a target marker, right? Um, this can get skewed easily. But what I want to say is if you're trying to lose weight, for example, it helps to have some idea of like what your starting weight is right now, right? So if you say, oh, my goal weight is to be 170 pounds, and I wouldn't advise this, but if you're trying to reach that goal within 2 months, it would help to know how close to 170 pounds you are at the very beginning, right? And same thing with conversation. It's like, okay, I see this person approaching. They don't seem dangerous. If they need help, I want to be able to help. But hopefully, the conversation is about getting directions. And hopefully, the conversation is going to be about how to get to the train station. Because if it's about anything else, I'm not going to be able to help them because I'm new to the city myself, maybe. Right. So just having some frame of network instead of being so helpless. For some people, they'll see that person approaching and they won't think that person's dangerous, but they say, oh my God, what could they possibly want from me? I, oh, my English is so bad, right? Or I'm too introverted, or I just don't know what to say if someone approaches me randomly. Yeah, exactly. And does it suck when you miss the mark, when you don't succeed, when you quote unquote fail your goal? Yeah, but at the same time, you don't want to put too much stock and weight into those type of things. Like, I wish I could come up with like a better catchphrase, and it's just data for you. But you you just need more experiences to enrich yourself. And you get better at picking up contextual awareness the more context you're exposed to, right? Yeah, you got to have grace for yourself and others. Um, yeah, we are all a work in progress. So dozens. Maybe we should close out on that because I don't think I could say it any better on a recap for this. But again, thank you so much for joining in the conversation. Um, Thank you guys for handling my wobbly standing camera. Uh, who are the people up front? Mai saying what, and Melissa saying I'm a noob. I appreciate that too. Like, there's no disagreement in that. So, you have a good rest of your Sunday. I don't know if I'll be able to chop up this into anything, but this is just again good out loud brainstorming, food for thought. Take care of yourself. God bless. And catch you guys next Sunday if you would like to join in again.